There is a restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip that requires a reservation 6 weeks in advance, charges $240 per person for a tasting menu, adds an 18% service charge before you have the opportunity to tip, then adds a 3% kitchen appreciation fee, then adds a $2.50 credit card processing fee, and then presents you with a bill that is approximately $320 per person for a meal that a food critic in the city's own newspaper described as competent, not extraordinary, not transformative, not worth 6 weeks of planning, and $320. Competent. And on the Saturday night, when that critic visited, the restaurant was half empty. The tables nearest the window, the ones with the view of the strip that the reservation system identifies as premium seating and prices accordingly, were unoccupied. The bar had 4 people at it. The kitchen was producing food at the pace of a restaurant that was not busy, and the strip outside the window, the street that the restaurant's marketing materials describe as the most exciting mile in the world, had fewer pedestrians on it than a comparable block in a mid-sized American city on a Tuesday afternoon, half empty, in Las Vegas. On a Saturday night, at a restaurant where the reservation was supposed to be one of the most coveted tables in the city. This is what the Las Vegas restaurant industry looks like in 2026. And the story of how it got here is the story of every other failure this city has engineered for itself across the last 15 years, told through the specific and uniquely revealing lens of food. The Las Vegas restaurant industry did not always look like this. The transformation of Las Vegas into a serious culinary destination began in earnest in the late 1990s and accelerated dramatically through the 2000s. And for a period of roughly 15 years, it was one of the most genuinely exciting restaurant stories in the country. The logic of it made perfect sense. Las Vegas had an unlimited supply of captive, high-spending customers. The casinos had deep pockets and were willing to subsidize restaurant operations as a loss leader to keep players in the building and to attract the high-end visitor demographic that spent money on everything. Celebrity chefs who opened Las Vegas outposts were accessing a market with guaranteed foot traffic, minimal marketing costs, and customers who were already in a spending mindset. The restaurants were good because the chefs were genuinely engaged, the ingredients budgets were generous, and the competition for the city's dining dollar was intense enough to maintain quality standards. Thomas Keller opened Bouchon at the Venetian. Joel Robuchon opened his eponymous restaurant at the MGM Grand, and it earned 3 Michelin stars. Guy Savoy came to Caesar's Palace. Mario Batali opened multiple concepts at the Venetian. Emeril Lagasse built a portfolio of strip properties. The list went on, and the quality in those early years was real. What happened to that quality? And what happened to the foot traffic that is now visibly absent from the dining rooms of the Strip's most prominent restaurants is a story with multiple chapters and a single underlying cause. The cause is the same cause that underlies every other failure documented in this series. The financial model changed. And when the financial model changed, every decision made within it changed with it. The restaurants that had been subsidized by casino operations as retention tools became profit centers that were expected to generate independent returns on the capital invested in them. The celebrity chef partnerships that had been structured as genuine collaborations with engaged culinary talent became licensing agreements with corporate food service companies that paid the chef's name fee and then ran the operation, with cost optimization as the primary objective. The ingredient budgets that had reflected a genuine commitment to quality were replaced with food cost percentage targets that reflected a genuine commitment to margin. The resulting food was produced by people following a cost-controlled recipe in a kitchen that was managed to a number rather than a standard, bearing the name of a chef who had not personally cooked in that kitchen in years, and in some cases had never cooked in that kitchen at all. The customer noticed. Not immediately, because the reputation of the name above the door carried the expectation of quality through the first visits and even through the first few years of declining standards, but eventually and decisively, the visitor who paid $300 for a dinner at a strip restaurant bearing a famous name and received competent food in a half-empty room did not book the same restaurant on the next trip. They told the people who asked about the trip that it was fine, it was Vegas, the food was okay. They did not tell people the restaurant was worth the reservation, wait, and the price. They did not generate the word of mouth that fills dining rooms on Saturday nights. And the dining rooms began to empty in the slow, difficult-to-reverse way that follows the loss of genuine quality in a market where reputation was the primary driver of demand. The celebrity chef licensing model deserves specific examination because it is the mechanism most directly responsible for the quality collapse, and because it is so thoroughly obscured by the continued use of famous names above the doors of strip restaurants that most visitors have no idea how it actually works. When a major Las Vegas casino property announces a partnership with a celebrity chef to open a new restaurant, the public understanding of that announcement is that the celebrity chef is going to be involved in the restaurant, that they will design the menu, that they will select the ingredients, that they will train the kitchen staff, that their culinary philosophy will be present in every dish served under their name. This understanding is largely incorrect. What a celebrity chef licensing deal typically involves is the use of the chef's name, a menu consultation that may or may not result in dishes that the chef has personally developed and tested, an opening period during which the chef or their culinary team is present to establish the kitchen's initial direction, and then an ongoing management relationship that becomes progressively less engaged as the restaurant settles into its operational routine. The day-to-day reality of a celebrity chef restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip is that it is run by a corporate food service company that has licensed the name, managed to the food cost and labor cost targets that the licensing agreement and the casino's operating budget require, and staffed by cooks who are following standardized recipes rather than expressing a culinary vision. This is not a secret within the restaurant industry. It is a business model, and it functions because the consumer's attachment to the celebrity chef's name sustains demand for longer than the quality justifies, because the name's reputation is a depreciating asset that generates revenue until it is fully depleted, at which point the casino renegotiates or ends the partnership and announces a new concept with a new name. The Strip has churned through celebrity chef partnerships in this way for 2 decades, extracting the reputational value of each name until it is no longer capable of filling the dining room, and then replacing it with a fresh name whose reputation has not yet been tested in the Las Vegas market. The mechanism produces a restaurant landscape that looks impressive from the outside, a strip full of famous names above famous doors, and delivers a product that is frequently disappointing to the visitor who arrives with the expectations that those names generate. The pricing structure of strip restaurants is the second major driver of the empty dining rooms, and it operates in a way that is as systematic and as deliberately constructed as every other extraction mechanism in the Las Vegas tourism economy. The base price of a meal at a prominent strip restaurant is already at the top of the range that most Americans would consider reasonable for a special occasion dinner. A $50 entree at a Las Vegas steakhouse is not unusual. A $75 entree is not rare. A $120 entree for a premium cut at a flagship property is available at multiple locations on the Strip. These prices, which would be remarkable in most American cities, are the entry point in Las Vegas. They are before the 18% service charge. They are before the kitchen appreciation fee, which is a relatively recent addition to strip restaurant billing that ranges from 2 to 4% and is presented as supporting kitchen staff compensation, but functions as a pricing increment that increases the check average without being included in the advertised price. They are before the credit card processing fee that some restaurants have begun adding to digital payments. They are before the wine, which is marked up at multiples that would be considered extraordinary in any other restaurant market in the country. A bottle of wine that retails for $40 in a wine shop will commonly appear on a strip restaurant wine list at $160 to $200. The markup is not a rounding error. It is a pricing strategy that treats the captive strip dining customer as someone whose alternatives are so limited that the normal relationship between price and value can be suspended entirely. The total bill for a couple having dinner at a prominent strip restaurant in 2026, including 2 entrees, a shared appetizer, a bottle of mid-range wine, a dessert, the service charge, the kitchen appreciation fee, and the credit card processing fee, is routinely between $400 and $550. This is not for a Michelin-starred tasting menu experience. This is for a standard dinner at a well-known strip restaurant that the casino's marketing materials describe as a signature dining experience. $400 to $550 for 2 people for one dinner at a restaurant that serves food made by a cost-controlled kitchen operating under a celebrity chef's licensing agreement in a room that is often visibly less than full. The value proposition is so fundamentally broken that the empty tables are not a mystery. They are the logical response of a market that has been pushed past the price point at which people will voluntarily participate. The visitor response to strip restaurant pricing has taken several forms that are each individually understandable and collectively devastating to the restaurant's economics. The first response is simple avoidance. Visitors who have priced out a strip restaurant dinner and found it incompatible with their overall trip budget are eating off the strip in the surrounding neighborhoods where independently operated restaurants serve food at prices that correspond to the actual cost of producing it rather than to the captive audience markup of the casino dining environment. The restaurant industry immediately surrounding the Las Vegas Strip, in the neighborhoods of Chinatown and the Arts District, and the various ethnic food corridors that Las Vegas's diverse residential population has built over decades, offers extraordinary value compared to the Strip. A meal at one of the Vietnamese pho restaurants on Spring Mountain Road costs $12. A meal at one of the Mexican restaurants in the Southwest Valley costs $15. The food at these restaurants is not worse than the food at the Strip's celebrity chef concepts. In many specific instances, it is better because it is made by people who are cooking their own cuisine rather than following a cost-controlled corporate recipe. The visitor who discovers this landscape, who figures out that a $15 Uber ride from the Strip gets them into a food culture that is genuinely excellent at genuinely reasonable prices, does not go back to paying $450 for dinner at a licensed celebrity restaurant. The second response is the preloading strategy, which has become so common and so openly discussed in Las Vegas travel communities that it is now a standard recommendation in any practical guide to visiting the city on a budget. Visitors are buying food and beverages at the CVS and the Walgreens and the Total Wine stores adjacent to the Strip and consuming them in their hotel rooms rather than eating in the casino's restaurant. The hotel room minibar that charges $26 for a bottle of water is being ignored in favor of a case of water purchased at a drugstore for $4 and carried to the room in a tote bag. The $60 casino breakfast is being replaced by granola bars and fruit bought at a grocery store the night before. The bar round that costs $120 at the casino's cocktail lounge is being preceded by drinks consumed in the hotel room from bottles purchased at a liquor store at retail prices. This behavior is rational. It is the completely predictable response of a market that has been priced out of the legitimate food and beverage options. And it is happening at a scale that is visible to anyone who spends time observing Strip visitors, who carries bags from off-strip grocery and liquor stores back through the casino floor on their way to the elevator in volumes that the casino operators cannot have failed to notice. The third response, and the one that carries the most long-term consequence for the Strip restaurant industry, is the substitution of the entire Las Vegas dining experience with other destinations that offer comparable or superior food at prices that feel like a reasonable exchange of value. The visitor who is planning a trip specifically around a great dining experience is choosing New Orleans over Las Vegas with increasing frequency. New Orleans has a culinary culture that is deep, specific, historically rooted, and genuinely excellent at multiple price points. A $50 dinner in New Orleans at a restaurant that has been operating for 40 years, serving food made from a family recipe by cooks who have been in the kitchen for decades, is a different category of experience from a $50 entree at a Strip restaurant operating under a licensing agreement. The food in New Orleans is connected to a place and a culture in a way that Strip food fundamentally cannot be, and the visitor who understands that difference is choosing the genuine article over the licensed version. This substitution is happening across multiple markets: San Francisco, Chicago, Nashville, coastal Texas. Every American city that has a genuine food culture is capturing Las Vegas dining visitors because the Strip has made itself too expensive to compete on value and too inauthentic to compete on culture. The collapse of the Las Vegas buffet is the most symbolically resonant component of the restaurant's story because the buffet was the original expression of the casino dining philosophy, the most direct physical embodiment of the handshake deal between the casino and the player. The buffet said, "We will feed you abundantly at a price that feels like a gift, because your presence in our building is worth more to us than the margin we could extract from your meal." It was the loss leader-made architectural, a room full of food that communicated the casino's fundamental orientation toward its customers. The slow death of the Las Vegas buffet, accelerated dramatically by the pandemic and completed in its final chapter by the MGM Grand's closure of its buffet operation, leaving the Strip with fewer buffets than at any point in the last 40 years, is not just the loss of a dining format. It is the physical demolition of the philosophy that the format represented. When the last significant Strip buffets closed, they were replaced not by better, more interesting dining concepts, but by food halls, which are collections of individual food stalls operating under a shared roof, each one priced at the individual restaurant level rather than the buffet's all-inclusive format, each one designed to maximize the revenue extracted from each individual transaction rather than to create the sense of abundance and generosity that the buffet communicated. The food hall charges you $8 for a taco. The buffet charged you $30 for unlimited everything. The food hall is more profitable per square foot. The buffet created a relationship. The food hall creates a transaction. Las Vegas chose the food hall. The labor situation in Strip restaurants is the dimension of this story that is least visible to the diner but most consequential for the food quality, and it connects directly to the broader labor collapse that the casino industry experienced during and after the pandemic. The closing of Strip restaurants during the 2020 shutdown dispersed a culinary workforce that had taken years to build. Experienced line cooks, sous chefs, pastry chefs, and front-of-house professionals who had built careers in Las Vegas restaurant kitchens relocated during the closure and did not uniformly return when the restaurants reopened. The skills and experience that had been accumulated in those kitchens were not transferable assets that could be recovered by posting a job listing. They were in the hands and the muscle memory of specific individuals who were now cooking in Nashville or Phoenix or Denver or in their own small restaurants in the Las Vegas neighborhoods that the Strip tourists never visit. The restaurants that reopened did so with thinner, less experienced staffs, operating at a quality level that reflected the talent available rather than the talent that had existed before the closure. The food got worse. The service got more inconsistent. The experience became less reliable in the specific, unpredictable way that follows from a kitchen that does not have the experienced personnel to execute its menu at the standard the menu promises. The response to this labor shortage from the casino food service operators who manage the Strip's restaurant portfolio was not to invest in rebuilding the workforce through better wages, better working conditions, and genuine career development pathways. The response was to simplify the menus, to reduce the complexity of the preparations to the level that the available workforce could execute reliably, and to maintain the pre-shortage prices on the simplified post-shortage menu. The visitor pays the same $300 for a tasting menu that was designed when the kitchen had experienced talent and is now executed by a kitchen that does not. The gap between the price and the quality that resulted is the gap that the Reddit threads and the travel forums are full of. The specific, articulate disappointment of a visitor who paid for an experience and received something that did not justify the payment. That disappointment is what the empty tables represent, not a temporary blip in demand. A rational market response to a product that costs too much and delivers too little. The international visitor dimension of the restaurant story is the one that most directly connects the food situation to the broader tourism collapse. International visitors, and specifically the European and Canadian visitors, who have historically been the highest per-day spenders in Las Vegas, are the demographic most sensitive to the value proposition of the restaurant experience because they have a reference point that American visitors often lack. A French visitor who is comparing the Strip restaurant experience to what they can access in Paris or Lyon is making a comparison that is not flattering to Las Vegas. A Canadian visitor who is comparing the strip restaurant experience to what they can access in Montreal or Vancouver is making a comparison that is similarly unflattering. The international visitor is not awed by the famous name above the door in the way that a first-time American visitor might be, because the international visitor often has access to the original, the genuine article, the restaurant that the licensed Las Vegas concept is drawing on for its brand. They have eaten at Joel Robuchon in Paris. The Las Vegas version is a licensed copy operating to a cost structure that does not exist in the original. They notice the difference. They tell other people about the difference. And the international market for Las Vegas fine dining, which was one of the strongest arguments for the Strip's restaurant scene during its peak years, has contracted in ways that are visible in the occupancy rates of the dining rooms and the revenue figures of the restaurant operations. The solution to the Las Vegas restaurant crisis is the same solution that applies to every other component of the Las Vegas crisis, and it is the solution that the casino corporations are structurally prevented from implementing by the financial obligations of their ownership structures. The solution is to reconnect the price to the value, to charge what the food is worth rather than what the captive market will bear before it stops coming, to staff the kitchens with people who are paid enough to stay and develop enough to cook at the standard the menu promises, to end the licensing model that puts famous names above the doors of kitchens those names have never entered, and replace it with genuine culinary investment by people who are actually cooking the food. To recognize that a half-empty dining room generating margin per cover is a worse business outcome than a full dining room generating lower margin per cover and higher volume, and that a full dining room generates word of mouth that a half-empty dining room never will. To understand that the visitor who tells their friends the restaurant was worth every dollar is worth more to the long-term health of the business than the visitor who pays the bill, leaves without telling anyone to go, and books a flight to New Orleans next time. The restaurants are empty because the food costs too much and is not good enough to justify the cost, and the people who have tried it have told the people who have not tried it the truth about what it is worth. That is the entire story. It is not complicated. It is the story of what happens to any product in any market when the gap between price and value becomes wide enough that the customer can do the math and decide the transaction does not make sense. The math is being done. The decisions are being made. The tables are empty on Saturday nights at restaurants that 6 weeks ago were telling people there were no reservations available. And the casino corporations that own those restaurants are not reducing the prices or improving the food or rebuilding the kitchens or investing in the workforce that would allow the quality to justify the cost. They are buying back stock. They are paying rent to real estate investment trusts. They are servicing the debt of leveraged buyouts that were completed before any of the people eating in these dining rooms had been disappointed by them. The restaurants are the most visible symptom of a system that has decided that the customer's experience is a cost to be minimized. And the empty tables are the customer's answer to that decision, delivered not in words, but in the only language that a publicly traded corporation is designed to hear. Revenue that does not arrive, covers that are never turned, reservations that are not made, and flights to New Orleans that are booked instead.